This week on LTC News, a new League of Women Voters unit for Lowell.
What we want is people who are educated on both sides of an issue.
Standing together against hate and discrimination. The craft of guitar making at Western Avenue Studios.
So it's really about customizing the build and getting exactly what you would want for your dream guitar.
Stay with us. Welcome to LTC News. I'm your news anchor, Alanna Flood. Solidarity Lowell is a coalition of Lowell area residents who are working towards social justice and standing together against hate and discrimination. On Sunday, January 21st, they marched through downtown with signs, chants, and pink hats. The event began with words from Newton Mayor Seti Warren, who is running for Massachusetts governor.
And we must not accept the status quo of economic inequality, the defining issue of our time, right? I'm going to be rolling up my sleeves. I'm going to be working shoulder to shoulder with you so that we not only win, but we ensure every person from every city and town in our state lives up to their full potential. Thank you very much. Let's march on.
Lowell City Councilor Vesna Noon addressed the gathering in his pink hat.
We are a nation of immigrants, and what the president is doing is turn this nation into a nation of ignorance. And we are not accept that. And that's why we stand together. This issue affects our brother, our sister, our neighbor, and the future generation, our children.
The marchers made their way over to City Hall, where they stood together in solidarity and made some noise.
There's so many reasons to be frustrated about society and our politics today, but I gotta say, when you just have a few hundred people show up spontaneously in cities and towns around the country and fight for the country we want to see, I mean, you can't help but be fired up and excited. So I feel great, and I'm just thrilled to be marching alongside everybody here today.
Power to the people and power to everybody who is together and is against racism.
They finished up at Mill Number 5, where the group listened to more speeches.
Looking back throughout history, there have been so many strong women who've made their voices heard. Let's take this strength and carry it with us as we move forward in our efforts.
If something negative happens to one member of our community, it impacts every single one of us. So we do need more men to come up and speak and speak out on this issue over and over and over again.
Today, we still fight for and against gender wage gap, lack of women leaders, violence against women, women's reproductive rights, human trafficking, sex slaves. Never stop fighting.
Who do we dump? Who do we dump? We need to dump because we need the women's rights, we need equal rights, we need a right to create a nice place for everybody, and we want to make sure that America is home for all everyone in this country.
This weekend, 1 year into the current presidential administration, serves an important purpose. It re-energizes us, it shows the world we are still here, and we still have a lot of fight left within us. That said, it exhausts us too. Many of us are existing in the context of having open wounds that have had little chance to heal before the next piercing laceration. This is even more true if we're part of any marginalized group.
Like all of us, but particularly women, I had endured the months of denigration of women by Donald Trump during the presidential campaign and his supporters. As a member of the intelligence community, after the results of the election, I faced the destruction of a lot of what I and my colleagues had tried to build and tried to support in terms of the Iran deal, in terms of things to keep us out of war. And that was difficult. And I've been talking to people all day who were like, oh, you were in the mall in DC. I was there too last year. And it just suddenly felt that we were no longer alone, because we're not alone. We weren't alone then, and we're not alone now. We are, in fact, the majority. We are the majority, and we are going to take our country back.
Solidarity Lowell meetings are held on the fourth Sunday of each month at Christ Church United on Bartlett Street in Lowell. The beautiful, historic Pollard Memorial Library in downtown Lowell has been closed since January 8th, following a major leak that caused extensive damage to the building and the collection. The leak occurred over the weekend when the library was closed. Extremely cold temperatures and wind caused a pipe to break and thousands of gallons of water to flow from the attic all the way to the first floor. The flood was not discovered until Monday morning, which made the leak a true catastrophe that will cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to fix. Library staff and contractors are working hard to dry out the building and repair the extensive damage done to the floors, ceilings, and furniture. But perhaps the biggest concern is the mold that might grow between the floors and on the books. Water in the second floor reference room soaked some irreplaceable historical books, which have been sent away for professional treatment. Other books have been thrown out. There is no word yet when the library will reopen. Meanwhile, the staff is offering limited services to the public at its satellite site at the Senior Center at 276 Broadway, and they can answer questions by phone at 978-764-4120. The Massachusetts Commission on the Status of Women holds public hearings across the state. On January 22nd, they held one right here at LTC in Lowell. There are 19 members of the commission, and their goal is to review the concerns of women in Massachusetts and offer the recommendations to the legislature regarding policy that would improve access to opportunities and equality.
These stories that we hear from everyone, compelling stories, inform what we're going to have as our legislative agenda. We also take very copious notes and make a report at the end of the year, actually the end of the fiscal year for us, which is May, to the legislature and the governor. The commission exists to provide a permanent, effective voice for women across the Commonwealth.
10 years ago, I ran for Congress because, like so many, I was motivated by a lifelong commitment to public service and a desire to change people's lives for the better. I knew the unique opportunity holding elective office provides. More than anything, though, I could not tolerate that a woman had not been elected to Congress from Massachusetts in 25 years. In one of the first House Armed Services Committee hearings I attended, I am on the House Armed Services Committee, generals from all the services testified on their work to combat sexual assault in the ranks. And a military nurse I met soon after confirmed a predatory culture, saying, quote, "Ma'am, I am more afraid of my own soldiers than I am of the enemy," unquote. I was astonished, but my then recent election to Congress, I'd only been in office several months, presented me with an opportunity to expose and address the appalling reality too many servicewomen and men were experiencing, and to enact historic reforms working across the aisle.
School, we always learn about historical figures, but there's not really much emphasis on women. But I think if we were able to show younger girls that even from as far back as a long time ago was even the beginning of this nation, that a lot of women were still fighting in a world predominantly filled with testosterone, that it might empower younger girls to actually believe more in the rights for women and stuff like this.
I am here to advocate for Massachusetts to join the ranks of super progressive states like Idaho and Tennessee, and to advocate for legislation that makes rape through fraud a criminal offense, as it should be. When did victims and survivors, women who report crimes, become accusers? When one reports a car theft, they don't become an accuser. They are a victim of a crime. Let us not ignore how these issues are defined and who defines them. Let us not ignore that we exist in a culture that asserts that we have a problem of violence against women and not a problem of men committing violence against women.
You can follow the commission on social media or find their webpage at mass.gov. The League of Women Voters is an organization that was formed before women got the right to vote, and it remains influential today. Lowell has not had its own unit of the League until this year. The group held its first event on January 23rd, once again at LTC.
It was meant as part of the women's suffrage movement to to once women, they were on the path to try to get the right to vote. And as they were moving in that direction, it was understood that women had not grown up in a world where they voted, where they understood issues, where they were expected to vote on issues. And they really wanted to make sure that women knew how to vote, that they were educating themselves, that they were not relying on their husbands or fathers to tell them how to vote, but really to educate themselves. So we are nonpartisan, so we're not here to be Democrats or Republicans. We're not here to be people who tell you what to vote for. What we want is people who are educated on both sides of an issue and who feel empowered to go cast their vote. The event is the Greater Lowell League of Women Voters. It's the official Lowell launch. The elections happened here in November. Your new city council and school committee were sworn in. And this is really our introduction of ourselves to the community and also the introduction of your new elected officials to the community as well.
Finding funds to
There's a federal league, right, the League of Women Voters, and they do lobbying in Washington, D.C. on behalf of these bigger issues, right? So automatic voter registration, they would try to work at the federal level for that. Then there's the state league working at the state house. And then we have local leagues. We are the Greater Lowell, so we're encompassing right now Lowell and Dracut, though we'd love to expand a little further if we could. And even though Dracut, where I'm from, has had a 78% voter turnout in the presidential election, which is phenomenal, right? Lowell did not have that. So when I approached them and said, I'd like to start a league for Dracut, they were like, no, you gotta include Lowell. There's so many people there who want it. This is a really interesting district to live in because we have a congressional race, we have a gubernatorial race. Because we encompass Dracut, we have municipal races this year, so this is a really big year for us to launch, and hopefully we'll figure out how to get these candidate forums and debates up and running because this will be new to us too, so we would love to recruit some people who are really interested in that. Lowell Votes is also here, and I don't think there's too many cooks in the kitchen. I think anybody trying to promote civics, anybody trying to promote advocacy and empowering people with their vote, I think that's great. You can't have enough of that.
The group is looking to add civic-minded members who want to take an active role in our democracy. Western Avenue Studios is home to more than 300 working artists and craftspeople. In this locally made segment, we visit the studio of musician Bill Anderson, who after a long career as a professional oboe player, now makes and sells custom acoustic guitars.
I also wrote songs and decided at some point I needed to play an instrument to accompany my songs, so I started learning guitar. And once I started learning guitar, I got to the point where I wanted to do something new and different, and I thought, well, why don't I make guitars, because I actually worked in a guitar factory before for electric guitars. This is actually Tasmanian red myrtle book-matched solid wood. It has a backstrip installed. This is nothing you would ever find in a typical Guitar Center or any other guitar shop. To me, you might as well build something that you could not walk into Guitar Center and buy off the wall. There's just no point in buying a custom-made guitar that looks like something you could buy at Guitar Center. So this is a 5-piece neck. People think that these are just lines drawn in the back, but this is actually 3 pieces of maple and 2 pieces of Peruvian walnut glued in a stack and then carved into this neck. That's done using a template like this, where you take a piece of wood that you like. You're going to take it and draw your neck shape on the wood. If you're going to work with wood, and especially making an instrument, I think you kind of have to fall in love with wood. It's unavoidable. So the natural beauty of the wood visually is one thing, and then I think as you play guitars you start to develop a taste for what sounds you prefer or may prefer. Although that can be, there's a lot of variables in there, and I think you have to have a pretty developed set of ears to really hear those variables. So somebody can pick the wood, the sides, the back, the binding. I can help them lay out a design of a guitar that there will not be another one of. So it's really about customizing the build and getting exactly what you would want for your dream guitar. So now, what you have is you have a single piece that if you look at it, sort of matches the profile of this neck. And what you have to do is cut out anywhere from 3 to 5 or however many pieces you want in the neck you have to line them all up and glue them all together, and then this gets carved into a finished neck. So this was all glued together. It was then sanded down to this profile, sanded with a little what is called a volute back here, which gives some strength right before the peg head. The heel is also sanded, the curve of the heel, and then eventually you have to cut a truss rod slot, which is what you use to adjust the arch in the neck to affect the action. Some people will use a shellac finish, some people will use polyurethane, but the thickness of the finish is what gives the guitar its sound or takes it away. So if you create a finish too thick on the guitar, you're killing the sound. Let me think, let me plan. I started looking for studios in Boston, and they were really pretty pricey and not set up so much for a woodworking shop. Western Ave had great space, and also they had other woodworkers here already, so there was a precedent for it being here. And size-wise and price-wise, it turned out to be a great fit for me. Be my true better half. Slow down, honey, take the time to be. I got inspired one day while I was working and saw my Monster drink can sitting on the thing and decided that would look really nice as a peg head. It's got really nice texture to it. So that's become the Monster bridge to go with the peg head, and there'll be a pick guard that will match that. For me, it's always about pushing away the traditional and trying to find whatever's new and trying to find something that's a variation or even an innovation on what might have been done before, and hopefully something nobody's ever done before.
If guitar is not your instrument, Bill also helps people build ukuleles. You can catch Bill playing one of his own guitars on February 23rd at the Hearing Room in Lowell. In this week's Sunspot, Lowell Sun Enterprise editor Chris Scott sits down with newly elected mayor of Lowell, Bill Samaras.
Hello everyone, I'm Chris Scott, the Sun Enterprise editor. Thank you for tuning in to another edition of Sunspot. We have a repeat appearance today of Councilor Bill Samaras. He was on maybe about a year or so ago, but now he's back because he is the new mayor. Congratulations on your mayoral election.
It hasn't been a year, has it?
It's been a long time.
Okay.
So, Councilor, thanks for coming in. Mr. Mayor, thank you for coming in today.
Thank you.
Why don't we just talk a little bit about last night's City Council meeting, Tuesday night City Council meeting, where there was a 5-4 vote with one councilor who you think would have joined you guys in the minority, the vote to explore other options for another building for the downtown high school project, not the doctor's building. Why don't you just bring everyone up to speed on that and share with us your opinion of why you opposed that motion by Councilor Rita Mercier?
Okay, I don't want to make any more out of it than it is.
Yep.
No, Councilor Mercier did what she can do, is said, I want more information. Are there any other sites possible? When I spoke on that, I talked about the issue is that I felt the MSBA said, look at the options that you have. The options are option 1, 2, and 3. She looked at it as looking for other locations. I believe we're sending the wrong message to the MSBA if we start looking at other locations. We've done that. We've vetted out, so many different locations. But it came down to a vote as to supporting the motion. And I just felt I was going to vote against it because of not voting against her motion, but the message that it was sent to the MSBA. And several of the councilors felt the same thing. There was
3 in particular.
3 in particular. But the other councilors just felt that what they were doing was allowing her to get more information. And so it was an opinion as to, is it worth getting the information? Does it send out the wrong message? There are different opinions that will be aired, but the thing is, there was no. Let's put it this way: what I was pleased about it, we actually discussed it.
And there was no shouting, or
there was no shouting. There was no, we'll say, jabs or anything like that. It was honest discussion, and I think before this is settled, we're going to have some good, open, honest discussion as to why some of us feel it's this way, what we should do, because that's what the public wants. That's what our constituents want.
Let's cut right to the quick. The building that City Councilor Rita Mercier is looking at or is thinking about is the new property on the former grounds of the Lowell 5 building across from the high school. It's the new Vision dorm. Vision is the company that came into the city from Pennsylvania. Never was really welcomed. It wasn't welcomed by UMass Lowell. Wasn't welcomed by an abutter who tried to take him to court. And now, the owners of that building have to deal with a city councilor wondering whether we should sell it to them, or will they try to acquire us by eminent domain, whatever. Do you see any scenario? Let me finish. Do you see any scenario in which the city would go to Rick Schaefer, the guy from Pennsylvania who built that building, and say, we'd like that building to complement our downtown high school project?
Truthfully, absolutely not. Okay? Now, why? I was the former headmaster of the high school. I do have some ideas as to what...
I knew you had a former position somewhere. I wasn't sure what it was.
But they spent $24 million building that building, okay? Now, the thing is, people are talking about, well, it's just as easy. We'll just go in, knock down a few walls, and we'll get the classroom space. It doesn't work that way.
Mm-hmm.
What the state demands for what the school would... It's one thing to have it at a dorm. It's another thing to be a school. So it has to meet much higher standards. You're talking about having to build a bridge from the 22 building over to that. You're talking $3 to $4 million just to build a bridge. And it sounds silly, but those are the costs for bridges. When we built the bridge across the canal, this is 20 years ago almost, it was $2 million to build one bridge.
The city doesn't have $27 million lying around where it could just acquire that building?
I don't think so. But for what? To take the building down? And
it's a beautiful building.
It's a beautiful building, and I think eventually...
It's too bad it's not filled up.
Eventually, I think they will fill it up. I think, because they talked about not only are they going to put in, because I'd asked the question myself when they made a presentation before the school committee, before the city council, what happens if you can't fill it up? And they talked about going for young entrepreneurs, business people. I mean, that make up...
Oh, like all the guys that were kicked out of the Perkins Loft building? That's a good one.
I'm not going to touch that. Can I leave now? But you see my point. I mean, it's they're going to try. So I hope they succeed. At this point, you don't want them to.
Okay, so that's a good segue.
But the whole idea of that being used for the high school, it just doesn't work.
Doesn't work. That's a good segue into your first couple meetings as mayor. What is it like standing in the podium for you? You've been on the council now for, I think, 3 or 4 terms. You are the former headmaster. Are there any similarities between being headmaster and being the mayor? Dealing with petulant children, anything like that?
No, I haven't. The thing is, actually, being headmaster gave me time to work with different groups of people in the city, and so that I find is a source of help to me. But I'll tell you, I wanted to be mayor because of the high school situation. I mean, it's very important to me. I mean, I want to see us do the best that we can. But I'm actually excited I'm more excited today about being mayor than I was when I was first elected, because the thing is, I had a certain thing in mind, but I've met so many nice people, okay? And, you know, and the city councilors have been very supportive, and I've talked to many of them about some of the things I would like to do down the road. And I think we're going to have, I use the term, we're going to have some fun. If you're doing the right thing, it can be fun. If you're constantly trying to manage problems, it's not fun, it's not worthwhile. But I think because of my background, I'll be able to help with a lot of the issues dealing with the high school. But with that being said, like I made 2 motions about a subcommittee dealing with these seniors, a subcommittee dealing with the nonprofits. Why I did that, the seniors are our most vulnerable people. And, you know, many seniors are very successful, they have a nice pension, but that's not the way for everybody. So sometimes it's transportation issues, it's medicine, so are we listening to them? And that's why I want that subcommittee.
We'll get back to that. Besides the high school, what do you envision as the 2 or 3 top issues the city council is going to have to face during the next 2 years?
Well, economic development is always, and safety is always there, okay? But one of the things, we're going to be closing down Dutton Street, the Lord Overpass for the construction, the Enel Bridge sites. If people are complaining about or concerned about traffic now, there's going to be, we're going to have many more problems. We're going to have, I'll say, we're going to have problems. And I want to talk to the city manager about creating a task force to be on top of that, because what has happened in the past few years, there's traffic, let's say, at Bridge Street and what have you. One of us would make a motion. Can the city manager look at, there's traffic at Couple Square, one of us would make a motion. But the thing is, this is a citywide issue.
It is.
So the thing is, we're going to have to be proactive rather than reactive. And one of the things, I think when we were talking at the beginning, talking about the bridge site near the Olympia restaurant, that it's, if you look at it, it's kind of sloppy. That's the only word I can use. And we have to make sure that who's ever building the bridge or doing the road, they're careful where they place their equipment, where they place their supplies. It's an idea. It's the whole idea of working smarter, not harder.
Just sticking on traffic for a minute, at the Sun, when we post a story to lowellsun.com that deals with traffic issues or road issues, transportation issues, those stories get a lot of hits. People are interested in those stories. I had a commute to work today that was just, I wouldn't call it hellish, but man, it was just slow. Just one of those slow days. What do you see as the underwriting major factor to traffic gridlock in the city? Is it just too much volume? Is it there aren't enough bridges? Are the lights not timed properly? Do there need to be more turn lanes, or are those all issues that you'd like the task force to look at?
It's all of the above. Yeah. Okay, we do know that when we complete these bridges, and especially Dutton Street, Lord Overpass, the smart light situation is going to have a bigger play. Okay, that's going to do it. So, but the thing is, people have to understand, with success comes traffic. But there's another issue. There's a lot of good things going on in Lowell, but also Lowell is, for Dracut and New Hampshire, a gateway to many major highways. So you have to think of two types of traffic. The traffic that needs to use the streets for the businesses in Lowell, and then the transient types that just come right through the city.
All right, so we hit on the high school, we hit on traffic. Why don't you describe or talk with us a little bit more about one more major initiative that you'd like to see? We've been talking a little bit about the ethnic groups in the city. Do you want to hit on that, or?
Okay. Well, there's a number. There's two. One, the neighborhood. I planned a meeting with the neighborhood leadership to talk about. They have been a reason why a lot of us as city council have been able to make motions that are very positive for the neighborhoods. But I think we have to empower them a little more. But I've also asked...
We have 2 minutes.
As I speak to the various neighborhood groups, that they try to be as inclusive as possible with our population. In certain areas, Centerville's very inclusive. Some of the other areas don't seem to be as inclusive.
Well, Centerville, you have a woman out there, well, several women who are very active in the neighborhood group. In the neighborhood group there.
So that's, I mean, I'm not saying anyone's doing it's the nature of the beast, okay? But the thing is, I do know this. If you want to have the city to be more inclusive and more welcoming, you got to work at it, okay? And we got to give them the support that they need. So, and another issue is I'm planning to meet with various leaders from the different minority groups. Did this at the high school too. They've come to Lowell. When you have the flag raisins, when they talk about coming to Lowell, they come to Lowell because of opportunity and what this country offers. And they speak so highly of the country. I want to make sure that not only when they speak highly of this country, shows through actions that we're supportive of their needs and we integrate them, into city life. And that's quickly.
So you're going to form a task force for traffic. You're forming some type of group for the ethnic issue too, correct?
Yes.
And you'll be unveiling those in the coming weeks?
Yes.
Mayor Samaras, I want to thank you for coming in today. Please keep
Thank
us
you for the
posted.
invitation.
No, you're welcome. It's always a pleasure to see you.
Okay, thank you.
Good luck in your new job.
That's it for this edition of LTC News. You can find us on LTC channels 899, online at ltc.org, or on Roku at LTC Lowell, or get the link on Facebook. See you next time.